Hi, I'm Paula, founder and CEO of CQURE and CQURE Academy, also Microsoft MVP and a Microsoft Regional Director. Welcome to another episode of CQURE Hacks, our most engaging series of free technical videos. And today we're going to be diving into a critical post-incident investigation technique about how to find the services that could be hidden previously, and we're going to also learn that component. So mastering this method is essential for anyone looking to strengthen their cybersecurity skills and respond effectively to threats. So you want to know more about how this is all happening? Let's get started. Okay guys, let's learn today how we are able to hide and find the service, which is, by the way, a very important technique to know when you are investigating the situation after the incident, because, well, changing the security descriptor, it's a really nice way to be persistent. So even though, of course, there is no direct mechanism allowing us to hide the service, we can always play with the SDDL. So the security descriptor definition language, and we are able to do it also by using the built-in SC command. So for example, if, and let's look at the screen, we're going to use over there the SC, for example, SD show bits. Yep, then that particular string is something that we are paying attention to while investigating the potential persistence in this area. Of course, it's not the only way how we can be persistent within the service area, but it's one of the, and definitely one of the most important ones to know. So first of all, let's see one thing. We're going to be playing with CQ service. If we're going to get into the services MSC, over there, I'll just refresh that view, and over there you can see that there is a CQ service, and CQ service is there, it's running, it runs on the CQGoodService.exe within the C tools folder. That's it. It has the service name, which is similar or the same eventually to the display name. Yeah, so we get a CQ service and CQ service. All right. So if we're gonna do that particular activity right now, and over there, you can see that we've got a success without explaining it now, just to show you the result first. And if I'm going to press F5, you can see that that service is gone. Yeah, now question is why that service is gone. And if we do look into the analysis of that, we are using the SC command, but this time not the SD show, but SD set CQ service. Then we are here playing with the descriptor of the service to make sure that eventually we are not capable to see the configuration of the service. But of course, you might be wondering how these shortcuts actually resolve into what we see. Well, there are many components of the SDDL, as you can tell. But one of the most important ones is actually this first part here, the D part. That's the discretionary access control list. And the one in here, farther down, yeah, that one is the system access control list. And over there, we're going to be investigating only that first part. And as you can see, that D, that basically stands for deny. That A is going to be for allow, because we're going to be also uncovering the service. So that D standing for deny means that we are denying. But then the question is who? And this IU is a shortcut for the built-in different groups and so on, users within Windows. And that one is the interactive. That stands for interactive. So interactively logged on user. And this is actually a group identifier that's added to the token of a process when the user was logged in interactively. But then we've got also a couple of other interesting entities over there, like for example, BA, which is the built-in administrators. Yeah. So when we look into the details of those, there's always some kind of a shortcut. Now, if you are wondering about the custom user, then the custom user will just need to add over there the seed, yeah, of that particular user. So we can also do some customization. SU, it's a service, yeah, so the service logged on user, and that is also basically added into the token when the user is logged in over there as a service. Yeah, so we could technically skip that part. This is pretty much what does the job, and also that one in our situation. But anyway, what else we see over there is the DCLC. And the DCLC, that's also an interesting statement, because over there, the DC, that is actually something that in the service world, that's delete child. Yeah, so DC, that's basically to delete child. And then that's actually to the permission to delete all the child objects within the service. All right, but then the LC, it's an interesting one, because LC, that's the service query status, which is a permission to talk to the SCM for the service's current status. So when we talk to the configuration manager for the services about the status of the service, that's the guy that is responsible for that. Now we also have WP, which is the write property. And write property, and that's a funny one, in a case of a service, that's a service stop. So that's the permission to stop the service. Corresponding RP, so the read property, in services world, that's actually service start, so the permission to start the service. Now we also have the DT, so that's the service pause and continue, a permission simply to pause, resume the service and so on. In the files and folders, that's delete tree, but in a case of a services, we don't really recall these shortcuts. We just focus on what they mean in the services world. And then we get a SD, and SD is nothing but the standard delete. So that's the permission to delete the service. So eventually, once we did that, we are not having a possibility over there to query the status of the service. So we can do, for example, in this case, get service name. And as you can see, we've got these names here, but this one name over there does not show up. So if we do CQ service, enter, then it tells us that we don't really have that kind of a service. But that's, of course, not true. And we can prove it really nicely. Set service and then name CQ service. And then we can specify here status. And that's very odd, because if you're going to do, for example, stopped or something, then it says service, CQ service, now it finds it. So it's really a matter of the API, who we ask, and so on. But for now, what is important is how we actually can find it. So what I've got over there, it's the Autoruns. And within the Autoruns, I started the Autoruns before we did this operation with the SDDL. And as you can see, Autoruns actually finds it. So I'm in a services tab, and then we've got the CQ service, CQ got service, and so on. And right now, if I will do rescanning of that service, it still sees the service. Why it's like that? Because Autoruns actually relies purely on the registry. So of course, we could work on the permissions that we would have to read details from the registry, so that eventually Autoruns running as me in this case, so the administrator, will not have a possibility to reach to the configuration of that service, which is also possible, but that's simply another layer of persistence, of hiding that we could potentially apply. But as you can see, even though we will hide the service like that, then this one does not impact that situation. All right, so the next part we're going to do, we will uncover it. And within that, we're just changing that particular descriptor to something more generic. Yeah, so it could be even the descriptor that we're going to take from the background intelligence transfer service that I showed you at the beginning. But right now, what we're going to see here, back again, is that if we do F5, CQ service is back. And then if we're going to go into PowerShell, then we could do get service name CQ service. And then as you can see, we are able to see that service. So we might be thinking, all right, but on the other hand, if we're going to get, for example, into the details of the service itself, then executable, it's still there. And that's actually this one. So eventually, we have a possibility in Windows to hide the process. That technique is called DCOM, direct kernel object modification technique. But this one requires a little bit more access on the kernel level, and also the direct possibility to eventually be the rootkit. Yeah, that's also a subject for another hacks video, so let me know if you will be interested in that. But right now you can see that we've got a really nice possibility to audit the security descriptors of the services. We always have to check who has the capability after the incident to start and stop the services on the impacted server, host, and so on. And SC is the command that we can use for the quick check, and that's a built-in Windows command. And please be aware that SDDL, it's the language, so the security descriptor definition language that we are able to use to describe permissions of the various objects in Windows, not only services, but also files, folders, registry, Active Directory objects, certificate templates, for instance, also the event logs. So there's quite a lot of possibilities that we can use by playing with the SDDL. And I really hope that right now you know how we are able to search, but also how that works, how actually the persistence works, and that you are able to identify the service with the change descriptor, and you know the principles of finding the service like that. Thanks a lot for watching.